In this episode, Bill joins us and takes a deep dive into bolt action as he fields his Bonko's Bastards for the first two games. Let's check it out.
This is the G.I. Jive, man alive.
Welcome to Trident Wargaming, a podcast dedicated to all aspects of tabletop wargaming. Your hosts are Bill and Andy.
Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 32 of Trident Wargaming. I'm your host Andy, and with me today is Bill.
How's it going, guys?
Hey. So this is a pretty special moment for us, considering this is first time Bill will be joining me on the bolt action episodes.
Yes.
So, yay!
The stars have aligned.
Exactly. So, as you can tell, it's a bolt action episode, and we got some interesting things to go over in this episode. Right off the bat, just so guys are aware that Bill has actually gotten 2 games of bolt action in finally. We've been planning this for a while, but with restrictions and whatnot, we weren't able to, and now we could. So super excited, as you might tell. But we had some fun times playing the 2 games, and we'll go over it here, of course. But first, I guess we'll kind of go into our hobby progress and whatnot that we've been doing. So we've been up to, Bill.
Oh man, the list goes on and on. It's been busy. I'm still chipping away on some side projects, but I am gearing up to get my my bolt action American Army done.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a feat for sure. I've got quite a few infantry, about 40-ish, to get rolling, and the tank as well, the M18, and also a M3 armored car.
Yep.
Transport.
Yep. Half track, pretty much. Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. It should be a lot of fun. As far as that's been going, it's basically just kind of gathering resources and getting all my paints together, making sure I have enough wash, because once you kind of kick off and start, you don't really want to stop mid production, right? You don't want to lose momentum.
No, for sure, that is true. Especially when sometimes it's hard to get a hold of some of the product, as we've seen in the past.
Oh, for sure.
I know earlier in the year it was like that, but yeah, no, that's great. That's awesome. I know we've talked about that before too. I know for myself, I've of course, just like Bill, multiple projects, but for bolt action, the Winter Germans that I've been talking about, just got some MMG teams built up and some observers, so just the little detailed units that I need to fill into my my theater selectors and whatnot. So got them built, pretty much got to get them primed and ready to start painting. So they're next on the docket. And I think I have another Stug and maybe a Panzer IV to add on to that army as well. So I have options, especially with the 2 theaters that I've been looking into. So from the Stalingrad campaign book. But yeah, other than that, just other games, of course, and then and then the Wednesday night games that we've been doing here at the local shop. So just trying to keep that going, organizing that, being the sergeant all there, right? So it's been pretty good. We had a good turnout there.
Yeah, it was bumping.
I think we had like 8 players last time, and I think I had about maybe 2 guys kind of walking through, checking things out, asking questions. So yeah, it's good to see it's strong, and I know there was other players that they're wanting to come down, just other engagements. So definitely at least 10 guys for sure able to round up. So that's pretty cool, and a lot of new guys, yourself included, Bill, obviously. But
yeah,
Yeah, it's awesome.
Well, it is. It's pretty. It is pretty cool to jump into the, like a newer community and, kind of see how everything works and all the quirks and what guys are playing what, and it's definitely, yeah. It is cool to jump in and see all the different armies, and get ideas for my own forces as well, right? Because I'm looking at some of the way they're building and kind of curious as to why they're using what they're using. And I know as the time goes on, I'll be able to start, kind of chiming in a little bit more and asking some more questions. Just I have a slight grasp, of the rule set so far, and it's been good so far, rolling
Nice.
those dice.
Nice. Except even you can't even hit with snipers either. So it's
No.
it's the curse, the sniper curse. But speaking of like the games, yeah. So kind of first impressions. How was your first two games? What did you think of it?
It was pretty decent. I played the bully, and
The bully
uh,
commissar, yeah.
yeah, no, it was really good. I definitely enjoyed the games themselves, obviously, but it was a very cool time just learning the new system. It does have some, I want to say, I guess, similarities between a few of the other games, like BattleTech, for instance, with the modifiers for hitting.
Yeah.
And I found the alternate activations. I thought it was going to be really kind of like one-sided and not as good as it is, but it turns out that it is balanced out. And I found you're looking 2 or 3 turns ahead. This is like chess and checkers. And I found my initial thing is I need to do, or you activate the squad that I need to get the most performance out of first, because if I wait, that squad might be dead.
Yeah.
And if I get the activation again with the dice, awesome. Then I can proceed with my plan. But I always try and make it a one and done, and try to live for the moment kind of thing. And that's it. It might be super aggressive. It might be, maybe not the most tactically sound choice, but in my mind, I'm trying to cause a lot of damage, or at the very least, make you react to what I'm doing.
Yeah. No,
and it's been a lot of fun though. Sometimes you get 2 or 3 dice in a row and you're like, oh, this is awesome. And then sometimes you're on the receiving end where you're getting no dice and the guy's got 4 and you're like, oh God, just make it stop. Right. So
no, for sure. It's there's a lot of different little things about the game that really, as a new player, but as being a veteran wargamer like yourself, right? You come into the game thinking, okay, it's a new game. There's probably going to be some different mechanics, but it's probably going to be similar to stuff I've played. And then the one moment I remember you were, whipping out the measuring tape. I'm like, okay, so there's no pre-measuring.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, let me just take a quick peek here. He's like, yeah, okay, so you can't actually pre-measure. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Right? Because we're so used to that. And
Yeah.
it's funny because we came from like Warhammer where you couldn't measure that distance, right? And then all of a sudden stuff started changing where now you can pre-measure. And then you go to bolt action, it's like, yeah, no, slap the hand, like you can't do that, right?
Yeah.
But in all fairness, there's obviously ways that you could mitigate that. And like, if you know your range is on the table just by pinpointing it with your eyes, then you've been playing this for way too long, and
Yeah, let's be real. Most war gamers are almost part-time carpenters.
Yeah.
You can eyeball 24 inches pretty good.
The length of my elbow to the tip of my hands is about 18 inches. Yeah.
Yep.
So, but yeah, like getting back to it, being the veteran player, there's a couple different things that happen, and like comparing that to the other games that we played, like Horus Heresy, like 40K, BattleTech, I'm sure with a lot of the different units and a lot of different ways they're played, you probably kind of looked at them and thought, okay, these are okay, or oh, this is really good. And then when playing the actual game and seeing how they work, your opinion probably changed slightly, right? So
it did on some units for sure.
Yeah, because like I tried to, the army I built, I ended up throwing against you a bunch of different types of units. You know, a sniper, a mortar team, a flamethrower team, a tank with howitzer, and then some different grades of infantry and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So like, because I know in your army, you know, you had a decent amount of infantry, and then you had your Sherman, and you also had your air observer on your first army that you made and whatnot, bazooka team.
Yeah.
So yeah, just kind of going through like playing the game and seeing what units can do and seeing how the game plays and how the terrain works. How easy was it for you to kind of adapt to the game itself compared to what you're used to? Because there was no save, like there's no armor saves, right?
No,
Stuff
there
like
isn't.
That, right? So maybe
it went. I think it went fairly well. I think I got a decent grasp of the mechanics, especially that second game. About halfway through, I could definitely feel, okay, I kind of have an idea what I'm wanting to do. I know what I'm looking at on the board. It definitely taking the all around army with a lot of different options just to see how it all works, and then obviously yourself taking an army that had a little bit of everything did help a lot. It gave me some good exposure, where I found like Air Observer, even though the Americans get some pretty sweet rules with them, and you can call in a shot twice,
double down.
When you're rolling like I am, and the skies are empty for majority of the game, not my favorite. I learned that mortar team very good, sniper team not so good, MMGs awesome, flamethrowers scary as hell, and kill and stay away, like keep that 15-inch bubble or eyeball it as much as you can, because I got punished. So
yeah, no, it was had to show you how those things work, but
you did.
But and it's funny because you mentioned mortar teams and the snipers and whatnot, and a lot of guys would be the opposite way around, right? They'd be like, mortar teams are literally hit or miss. Obviously, it literally is. And there's guys who like sniper teams, right? Because they can peg off, fixed teams gunner, and that's it, or the gun itself, and that unit's dead. But in these games where you see, like on the second game, like my mortar team landed that hit a couple times, and it was like, ooh. And that's just a medium mortar. If I had a heavy mortar, like that whole squad would have been wiped,
Yeah, it definitely was. That was kind of a spot where I was kind of hooped. The squad had, I think, 4 or 5 pins on it, and it was either try and move and go down or just rally. And I'm like, they're gonna die, but being a dice game, sometimes the dice gods are on your side. So I decided to rally, and then I was punished with artillery, and it happened. But I think taking that chance is always worth it, especially at that point in the game. Running regular infantry as well, right?
That's right. My
actual American army there, and then playing against the veteran like infantry, huge difference. Veterans are very hard to kill, and take a long time. I think you have to approach a veteran squad a lot differently, and try and almost bully it as much as you can with your army early on, because if they're allowed to run around and go rampant, they can take a lot of firepower, and it was surprising how much they actually were able to do.
Yeah, especially when like you have everything to consider too. You know, if the guy is using, you know, building a building for hiding in and using that extra protection rule, you know, now they're even tougher, right?
Yeah.
But again, you know, we both had veterans on our in our armies, and yeah, they're hard, you know, not to crack
They are.
when you're using that cover, when you're using jumping from terrain to terrain and trying to get that bead on the opponent's unit, and then vice versa, where you know you're double teaming on that same unit trying to wipe them out, because like that one German unit of mine that I ended up trying to run out to engage your one veteran
Oh
unit,
yeah.
like
Yeah.
it just got riddled. Like my mistake for I should have ran it to the building and
Yeah.
hunkered down and just, you know, dealt you with you from there. But my whole thing was them is I wanted to actually assault you to show you the assaulting, right? Like the close combat fighting. I wanted to show you that, but instead they got gunned down, and it was
I
like
was too scared.
their NCO was like left on the board until finally he got pegged off, right? But
I think the bazooka killed him.
yeah, I think it took
It
that
was
shot and just,
overkill.
you know, paste. But going through it though, like, yeah, even the map that we were playing on, like the way I had it kind of set up with the factory and the fences and stuff, you can even see like even the light cover was just a big bonus to you, right?
Yeah, it does a lot of it does a lot. Like, cover is very interactive. I found probably that to be one of the most surprising things, first looking at the boards, and it's like, okay, like there's not a whole lot here, especially like compared to some of the other games we've played. But once you actually start, rolling the dice and seeing how everything interacts, I was like, oh, okay, well, actually, yeah, those tables were actually really good.
Yeah, and it's the whole thing too is like, you know, with bolt action, it's not necessarily going to be each side is mirrored like how we've seen in the past, because there's always, anytime I've played bolt action or set up a table, I always try to put a theme to the table, right? Be it, you know, in France and fighting through the bocage, or you're assaulting a factory like you were doing in this last one we had, the last game, you know, or you're fighting in the little town of France or Belgium or something, and there's all these like little condos and littered with streets and trees, and there's always a little bit of a story to your games, right? And it makes it super interesting for maneuvering, line of sight, you know, the usage of cover, maneuverability, all that stuff, right? So it's definitely different, and for me it took a little bit of time to get used to. Maybe first 5 games, just trying to hunker down and figure out, you know, the terrain and the cover, and especially with like dense terrain where you're so used to like going down to the model level, looking, oh, I can see through those trees, I can see the, nope, you're completely covered, you're completely obscured. Oh, that's right, it's dense terrain, right? So it's definitely different. I'm super glad that you were actually quite enjoying it. So it's fun to see the new player, you know, getting super involved with the game and like figuring things out. Because I noticed, like, even in the first game that we played, you know, the first 2 turns was kind of like, you know, you're doing your thing, and then just kind of teach you a little bit about this and that, and then like 3rd, 4th turn, it was like you're in the groove already. You know, you already kind of figured stuff out and know what to do just from being experienced in other games. So pretty neat in that aspect. And then of course Dan showed up and was checking things out, and it even seemed like he was really curious.
I saw he was peeking. He was peeking.
So, and if you're listening, Dan, I have multiple armies for you to choose from to play if you want.
Yeah, check it out. Check it out. It's definitely it was a lot of fun to play. I even in the second game, like with the army I took, Bonko's bastards, I
Okay. Okay, that is okay. We're writing that one down.
it I thought it was being real sly by taking my two medium machine gun teams and making them vets. And then I know after the game talking with you, I was like, it's kind of pointless because as soon as you lose one guy, your small team anyways. And okay, yeah, you would normally have sixes, I guess, but is it really worth the extra points? And I know we were kind of talking about, I felt like, what, it's probably not worth making them bets. It's probably worth focusing on either infantry squads, like the big, larger squads, or at least maxing them out to full strength.
Yeah, no, there's
So,
and it's an ongoing thing with MMG teams. I've heard a lot, and I've read a lot of guys talking about them, how, and even at the shop, they're like, they're not really they're not really worth it. You know, they're another slot to take, which some armies you can take multiples. Like my German army right now can take 2 as well. Our last game, one of them didn't really do anything, and the other one, peppered a squad for a little bit, but then got taken out. Right, so
yeah.
Hit or miss. I mean, I like them just for the thematic part of cutting lines off, and I think that's what they're meant. They are meant for that, is cutting some lanes off or putting them in Overwatch. As soon as your dude goes out in the open, like your opponent goes out in the open and he's in your line of fire, you trigger that
It's
Overwatch
over.
or the ambush, I should say, and you just open fire, right? So
Yeah.
there's that. But overall, like, and there's other units that you haven't even came across yet, right? Or tried.
No.
Like, I know you're talking about a flamer team now, right? And you were talking about your engineers.
Yeah, I was looking at running just a flamethrower squad, and then obviously with some of the different theaters that I was looking at, I was like, well, you know what? It might be more beneficial to actually just take an engineer squad and run the flamers in that squad, and actually have a little bit more versatility on the board. And I know we kind of talked a little bit about that, on how it was kind of, maybe not a bad idea to explore, just because, yeah, it saves me from having to switch back and forth. Like, I think the main two I was looking at is Avalanche and Husky, and basically one lets you take the bazooka sniper and one lets you take a bazooka flamer. But at least if I can take, the engineers, I can have the best of both worlds in one army.
Yeah.
So it was definitely nice to kind of look and read into and kind of make my decision on, well, you know what, I think a engineer squad would be a lot of fun, considering, they can have double bars, an SMG, the flamer, getting transported around in that half track M3 would be probably quite a nice thing to have. So
yeah, and that's the other thing too, is you put that in that transport and they're bombing around doing their business, but at the same time they're manning guns on that M3, right? So
yeah, and that thing's got a ton of machine guns on it.
So you not taking a machine gun team, now you kind of have a mobile platform with machine guns.
Yeah.
Right. So it's it really gets you thinking with units and some of the combinations you can do, because the nice thing about the transports is it just doesn't carry one unit. It's based on models.
Yeah, that blows my mind. I'm coming from game systems where you can have a character, throw them in a squad, and that's it. That's the only thing that can join, like, go into a transport. And hearing like you can take multiple is just, it's crazy.
Yeah, well, I know Dusty, on one of the episodes he was here with his U.S. Marine Force, he's got the LVT Buffaloes, and they carry 30 models.
That's
He
insane.
deployed like 5 squads.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, is it empty? Like,
Yeah.
So, but there's different things like that in the game compared to other games. It makes it fairly interesting and kind of eye openers to people. And then, of course, people will actually come in and figure different things out too in the game, and some new combos and this and that. But the best thing about it, like yourself going with engineers, it ends up giving your army aesthetically, a specialized unit that fits with your army, right?
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, I'm taking all these infantry and I'm taking this giant dragon to go with it from something else. No,
Yeah.
it's they're another part of the division. They're engineers. They're accompanying with this regiment. So it's a cool thing to see that a little bit of flavor within the army, within the theater that you're playing, right? So
Well, it's kind of been the main focus. Like starting out, I really historical gaming. Try to really pick an era. So my whole thing is mid-war.
Yeah.
And I pretty much went, okay, I'm going to go 1943. That's kind of my era. That's the weapons I want to use. That's kind of where I want to be sitting in terms of technology. Just so it gives my army that flavor and that feel. So, I actually did a little bit of reading online and read inside the American rule book to see what I actually had access to. And, it's even with the anti-tank gun, right? Did some research. Oh, in 42 at the end, they actually decided to move away from the smaller caliber. And right in the beginning of 43, they actually moved up to that 57 millimeter. And just little things like that, right? I've been really trying to stay true to the fluff, I guess, for lack of a better word, right?
To the history, yeah.
And it's been fun actually, because I can actually justify this is where my army's at. This is that snapshot in time where I'm fighting, right? And again, Bonko's bastards are going after some krauts, and we're gonna get them.
That's pretty good. Yeah, I know it's always nice to be able to do that with this game. That's the beauty of it. But like going forward with the game here, a couple things to like, things that you liked about this system, being it, the ordered dice drawing, makes it really interesting, or the actual like to hit modifiers,
Yeah.
do you think it's like pretty simplified, or could get a little confusing sometimes? Terrain, like compared to other gaming systems, how would you kind of rate it? As in, like, is it complicated to kind of understand, or is it pretty straightforward? Obviously how easily it was for you to just figure it out, right?
Yeah, I'd say in terms of like comparing it to all the other games like we've played collectively, it's not the easiest game, but it's not the hardest. It's probably moderate, like in the middle of the pack.
Okay.
Just because of modifiers, right? The modifiers can be a little tricky in the beginning, but once you kind of start rolling through and playing, it does get a lot easier. And obviously, the more games you play, the easier it's going to get for sure. The terrain modifiers still trip me up a little bit, but again, I've got 2 games under my belt, so be gentle, guys. And yeah, but for the most part, it's fairly straightforward. I think the orders and like just the actual like shooting mechanics of moving, advancing, stuff like that I actually don't mind at all. I think that's pretty easy, and the dice are actually helpful to have. Because it does let you know where everything has been and lets you know what's actually moved. At first I was kind of like, it's kind of weird leaving the dice there. I'm like, is it really necessary? But yeah, it is, because you've got 10-11 dice yourself, your opponent's got a lot. There's a lot of action happening on that table, and having the dice there to see what's activated and what's done what, it actually does help quite a bit. So
yeah, especially when you're doing the modifiers, because like the down order, right? And then and on top of that too, looking across the field and looking at your opponent's units and seeing what is activated and what order that has been given to them.
Yeah,
you start to look, okay, well, these guys did an advance order, so they can't go down. I'm going to open up on these guys, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That kind of thing, So it definitely, it's good to be very observant with kind of the dice on the board, and what's happened already, and what can still activate, and just position. It's like you said, it's like chess, or it's like pool. You're planning your next shot. You're lining up your forces. You're taking your knight to take out that rook or whatever, right? That's the kind of thing with the war game, is just with bolt action, is you're definitely setting up your next move in a sense, right?
You are, for sure. And it definitely, after even just these 2 rounds that I've played, I can see the value of really kind of planning it out as you go, of where you want to be. Like, I know when we talked a little bit, you're like, yeah, you're pretty aggressive with that Sherman, man. And I was like, well, I'm just trying to drive that Sherman up. And I won't lie, it's one game where I've just been like, you know what, I'm going in. That Sherman's just rolling up forward, and to the point where I was blocking off a machine gun team of Andes that was in a building, and knowing that I'm practically immune to it, where I'm just sitting there and just opening up on a bunch of his buddies kind of across the field while staying out of line of sight of that dirty old Stug. And I was like, this is a good place to be. I like it. It was fun though, like being able to kind of bully my way around with that tank, especially watching what happened to it on my first game. I knew a little better now.
Yeah, you definitely stayed away from the Flamer team.
Yep.
So yeah, obviously, like your first match obviously wasn't quite sure how effective a Flamer team could be, and
No.
your first match you pushed in hard, like you annihilated that infantry squad of mine on the far flank, like caught out in the open, trying to get into cover. I had to go down like multiple turns, had multiple pins, couldn't do anything to relieve any pressure because my other units were getting slammed as well. And yeah, your second match, I noticed it was like, okay, he's learning, he's using cover a lot more now, and he's keeping that tank in a good position where he's putting a lot of suppressive fire on a unit with those machine guns instead of using his cannon, and at the same time he's using the building for hard cover, right? Because I was only able to see partially your tank.
Yeah.
And it worked well. My flamethrower team was just going through dense terrain. It was a little bit too slow to get to where he needed, and if he went out in the open, he would have been taken out instantly. So
yeah, well, there was a turn where I know you did move up a decent amount, and I just backed up. I was like, nope.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be anywhere close because I knew what happened last time.
Yeah, seeing that, like that army of mine didn't really have an answer to a 4 long-range anti-tank. Like the Stug I took, it actually only had a light howitzer, so that frontal attack on you wouldn't have worked for me. And the only way it would have worked for me is if I did an indirect shot with it, which I was too close anyways, or I got a flank shot on you, which obviously wasn't happening. So
that was another part too, right? I made sure I was keeping my hatch closed, kind of limiting my pinto mount firing, just because you never know.
I think I hit you with the mortar.
You did.
Yeah, I did. It was the 6 effect.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hit you with the mortar, and then literally I needed another 6, right? But
yeah,
I didn't score the hit. It was just kind of a flashback of one of my early day games against Jordan there with a heavy mortar team. But that's a different story for another time. But yeah, it's just there's little things like that you start learning, and you realize, okay, cool, I can use these two for full effect, but my opponent actually has some heavy guns that can really hurt me if I do this.
Yeah.
So no, that's good. That's good. It's good to hear that you kind of analyzed and looked and like kind of planned the game out, right? So but yeah, like here's the thing too, is I noticed when you did, you had your first army,
Yeah.
and then compared to your second army, you did some little changes, right?
Yep. Oh,
So,
definitely.
Going through that, like initially going through, because I know yourself and I know Brady were sending me tons of different armies, right? Because you guys are both playing Americans, and
Oh yeah.
going through that process, not really knowing how the game plays, you're just using your guys' experience of previous games to kind of build units, and like you're so used to building an army with full squads,
Yeah.
right? Whereas this, your squad does not have to be full, right? So like, go through the whole idea of like when you're starting to build an army and kind of what you were thinking about as you're doing it.
Well, I know the first game I played, I only had the 2 infantry squads, and after playing that game against you, I was like, okay, infantry is really good, and I should probably take more. Which was one of my main, I guess, objectives for the second game. Because second game I ended up taking 3 squads, which felt a lot better. All my squads, they start off with the best intentions, full strength, ready to roll, and kitted out nice. Although mid war, so I'm only rocking 1 bar. I'm only got the 1 NCO with an SMG. From there though, as I start to add a bunch of these different units into my army and start making, okay, I'm gonna make this guy a vet and I'm gonna do this, I'm like, oh god, I'm over by like 48 points. And then I'm like, well, I'll just start cutting infantry from the squads. And like I was running 9-man squads in the second game.
Yeah.
And that was kind of all I could really take, just because I was really trying to scrimp on points. And I can see where it can be quite a double-edged sword, right? Having the smaller squad is nice, but at the same time, you take too many of those kind of hits, or you get hit by that machine gun team or a mortar, and it's like, oh, that squad's kind of useless now. Yeah. So it was kind of, it's been a balancing act, and I'm still kind of trying to figure out the best number. And also, like, I saw the effect of having a full squad or a full strength squad, and that was pretty sweet. I admit, I was like, this is something I really would like to strive to get, because it's just definitely feels good board presence wise, and also being able to get any of the longevity throughout the game.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's basically, it's been an experiment of what's kind of been working for me so far, but so far so good. Now, since we played the second game, now I'm looking at, okay, you know what, two full regular US infantry squads, and now, okay, you know what, maybe I'll take an engineer squad, start kind of mixing up the troops a little bit, see if I can max out some advantages, right, to running a particular theater and still getting all the options.
Different loadouts and stuff too on the squads, right? Like, majority of the infantry will be very, very similar. There might be, and this goes across a lot of the army books. They're very, very similar. Their morale is different, or some of their options are slightly different, where they can have 2 light machine guns, or up to 4 guys can have submachine guns, stuff like that. But ultimately, you're going to play with and choose kind of the ones that you really like. So I know it's the same thing for my Germans. I was looking at it, I was like, oh, I have a pioneer squad, which is equivalent to your engineer squad.
Yeah.
And it's funny looking at putting them into the army, and maybe putting them in a transporter, a half track kind of thing too, right? Or I just throw them on foot and run them, because same thing, they get a flamethrower in their squad, right? So stuff like that. You'll find, like, just these 2 games that you've played, like, I already know, and I'll let you talk about it, but I already know kind of what units you're liking, right?
Oh yeah.
But like out of your army that you played with and the units, like which units were the ones like your favorites? Like they operated well and they were used well, and what did you like about them, kind of thing.
My top picks for sure. My number one has to be that dirty old Sherman.
Mm-hmm.
So that M4A1 is just a beast. But it's funny because the Sherman, as awesome as it is, having the gun, coaxial, everything, I think I've only fired that cannon once.
Yeah.
It's been a machine gun whore. That's pretty much what it does, and I've been enjoying it because I like it throwing out a lot of dice, and it does its job well. It's just suppress fire, keep guys hunkered down. Keeping on with that theme is my MMG teams. They've been a lot of fun to play.
Oh, definitely.
They're doing what I've wanted. Like, they're doing what I want them to do. They do what they say on the box, right? It's just throw a lot of firepower out, and they have good range for what they do. And then from there, just even the basic infantry squads, I've actually really liked. They seem to be all around pretty good. The bar is really nice. The extra dice, right? The SMG, it's good, but I found like I'm kind of torn, right? Like at those longer range, I guess, engagements, a rifle would be so much better. Majority of the time.
And see, so the rifle would be so much better, especially with the fact that you don't, get hit with the -1 for advancing, right?
Right. Yeah.
The one thing I wanted to do, I was trying to do it, but I got gunned down, was to get into assault with you with at least, maybe a half strength squad to show you combat, because you haven't seen the SMG guy. He's
let it rip.
Well, he's got because he has an assault weapon, I believe, the SMG. He gains tough fighter, which in close combat, if he causes a wound, he gets to roll again to cause another wound, right? Because in close combat, there is really no, unlike like Warhammer, where you're rolling to hit, then you're rolling to wound, and then you're rolling the saves if you get any.
Yeah.
In bolt action, it's literally you have 5 guys, and then depending on weapons, if you have tough fighter, you're rolling just those dice to try to kill the other guy. You need to beat his pretty much his toughness, right?
Yeah.
And they die, and then pretty much what happens is whoever got the most casualties in that round of combat wins, and the opponent is wiped out. That's it. There's no constant combat. There are things like, being fanatics where you don't rout and you fight to the end kind of thing. But, like SMG has its place for the Americans because of their national rule. It's a little tricky, but I always suggest still having at least one.
Mm-hmm.
Just for that simple fact, if you do get into combat. So, but and they get 2 shots at their range too, so it's pretty decent.
Yeah, once I've closed range with that squad, the SMG definitely does its thing. It's just those initial few long range bouts where I'm advancing and firing off the bar and the rifles, because I do get the America rules where they can do that. It just it seems it's like like, who knows, it might even evolve to the point where it's like, what, I'll take one squad with a NCO that has a SMG, and maybe the other ones just kind of hang back and just fire away, right? That extra shot, man, an extra dice does a lot, especially in that game, especially when you're just trying to roll dice and get as many hits as you can, and you're really trying to maximize as many hits as possible.
Oh, for sure. And even
So
even the fact too, like I noticed you were definitely doing men snap to action a few
oh
times,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I guess no, that reminds me. Thank you. The lieutenant definitely is pretty sweet. A first lieutenant all the way. I think they're super worth their points. Like for what he was doing and that squad where it's like, yeah, I can activate 2 squads and get them to do whatever they want to do. That was huge. And I really think it's I think once I get some of the mechanics down more, I'll really start to walk away with that a bit, because I think the biggest takeaway for me is placement. I still think kind of my placement might be a little bit wonky, or deployment, but once I kind of got that down, I think I think it'll be a lot of fun, because there's so much you can do with that army.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And there's the other nations' armies. They have some different stuff for that too, for like the HQ. Like everybody gets a commander and stuff, right? But the Germans, they get the extra dice on top of that. And whereas like the Soviets, in combination with their commissars and their commanders, there's some re-rolling of like failed morales, obviously by executing a guy, but they have different things. Like the Japanese have a very similar thing as well as a commissar. I think it's a political officer, but just stuff like that, and then playing them properly, and that placement of them, and in combination with other abilities from in your army, you'll start to notice like, okay, these guys, they need to stick around with them. They need to be over here. If these guys are having real trouble with morale because prep bombardment hit them or something, right? Stuff like that.
Yeah, I like prep bombardment. That's pretty legit. Especially when you get to roll lots of dice and roll better than the opponent. That's fun.
That is one of the can be most satisfying, and at the same time, most disgusted role in the games.
Oh yeah. Well, after that second game, man, I wanted to light a cigarette after. So I was like, oh, that was good for me. I hope it was good for you.
Yeah, there's been matches where I've lost my commander, or they've landed a hit on my tank and taken it out of the game. Right off the bat,
that could be nasty.
It sucks, but you know what? You continue playing, and you fight it out, and it tends to be a good fight regardless, right? So yeah, a bit of a random thing, especially do with like the missions too, right? Like you have pretty much attack or defend scenarios, and you also have like battle scenarios. So, and you've done 2 of the mission, even though I kind of botched the second one a little bit. You've got
That's okay.
You got 2 of the missions played out, and you can see how different they were already. And there's 10 more missions, and the nice thing now is like, come this when we play again on the next night here, I'm going to try to pair you up against somebody else.
Yeah.
And maybe somebody who's not playing Germans, right? Hopefully there's another Axis player, but if not, we can do whatever, right? Pickup game, just to show you kind of the different army, the different little abilities that they have, and the way guys play them and stuff, right? So it'll be good. It'll be good for that, good experience. And then of course you'll definitely learn stuff from the other player as well. So
good. For sure. I'm definitely looking forward to kind of mingling in the community and checking it out. I know myself, I'm playing very generic Americans. I'm not rocking Airborne. I'm not rocking Rangers. I'm not doing Marines. I'm just playing Jane.
The army.
GI, yeah, the army, and it's nice because the way I'm trying to not only paint, but the way I'm trying to do the bases is I'm trying to do very generic, where I can be like, is it Normandy? Could I be in the Pacific? Like, can I jump from different theaters, just so I have something all around? That part's nice as well. One thing I wanted to mention, in terms of just like the game system, that I found actually very interesting, and when we were talking about combat, you kind of spiked it, is the no saves is so different from any other game. And it's just like, yeah, okay, those guys die. I mean, what do you mean they die? They just die. I'm like, oh, okay. It felt so weird just to pull my guys off, or like the exceptional damage is like, oh, so
Yes.
yeah, I sniped that. I'm sniping your NCO, and I'm like, oh, that's what the hell, right? Like, it's just, I'm so used to being able to like, look out, sir. Is there a roll? No, man, he's dead. I'm like, oh, it is interesting how that mechanic itself even works. It's kind of cool. Like,
Yeah.
it's just, you're dead. That's it. It just happens.
They've put in some thought for sure to the game to make it like, there's an artillery strike. There's no save. You're getting blasted to bits. Like,
yeah, it's going down.
And that's what happens, right? Like, that was part of it. They've kind of captured that with not having the saves, but they've also captured the fact that, yeah, you know what? Units jumped from cover to cover. They held positions like in real war. And on top of that, there's, units sometimes got caught off guard, or they took that risk trying to go into the open to get in an advancing sector. And you see it in game. Like, if that unit gets caught in the middle or out in the open,
oh yeah,
more than likely they're toast, right?
Yeah,
so
it's going down.
So they definitely did a really good job on the game. I've been playing it for like the last 3 years now, and just honestly, it's kind of like one of my top games, right? I fell in love with it and just like became a fanatic for it, and just love the game to death. I'm super stoked that my best buddy's gotten into the game, and hopefully some of the other buddies might check it out, even if they want to borrow models and just play. They don't have to even buy, because I got everything.
I think Dan's on the fence, man. I think you just got to push him a little bit, and he's there.
Just bonsai charge him, eh?
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, like, the community's been really, really super awesome. Warlord Games has been pretty good to me. Got to know a couple of the guys for them as well, and just having some good times. Definitely excited to possibly, in the future here, when, I don't know, but when we start rolling events out.
So soon.
Yeah.
So soon.
Hopefully having some bolt action events for the community to give back to them too, and just let's go out and have a full day of just fun gaming. Let's play the story out, stuff like that. And even like Tank War, which I haven't even really mentioned too much to you about, but there is a section where, if you want to play tanks, just pick up that book and you can play tanks, And the nice thing about it is any models you have right now, even infantry, because there is infantry in Tank War,
yeah,
you can use it all. It's all there, right? So the game's been really good. It's pretty nice. Even building your armies, like, they have a lot of ways of going around that. And I know yourself, Bill, like, you built a few of the kits. It's funny, you actually had the experience of a old kit compared to a new version kit.
Yeah, so what I'm gonna call is the bullshit kit. Because when I started putting together these old US infantry,
yeah,
and I was like, this is like this is insane. I gotta cut the guns out, position them in the hands, glue the arms like to the body. I'm like, this is just whack. Like, I was actually getting a little bit pissed off because some of these guns just, I was like, how? Like, this gun will not line up. This is just junk. I was just like, oh, and I've been modeling for 25 years, and it was frustrating me. I was like, this is crazy. And then I was like, yeah, I'm gonna get a new box, and I got a new, like, an updated box, and I'm like, oh, what the hell? I was like, this is nothing. Like, I think one squad of 10 of the old guys took me like 3 days to build, and a squad of the new, like, version of the kit, it was done in a night.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is why they swapped, because this was not cool, and these are great. The bar bigger, the kit itself is better. It looked better.
And I know in one of my unboxings, I actually point that out, and I show a pretty good close up of the weaponry and the new sprue and stuff. So, but yeah, it's a lot of the. I know a lot of the German kits are like the new kit for the Americans.
Thank God.
Unfortunately, not unfortunately, I should say, but when I first started, because I picked the Soviets as my first army, so the Soviets are the old style, right? So it you can definitely tell, especially when you're putting the arms and the guns together. If you don't follow their little pamphlet, you're gonna have a hell of a time.
Oh yeah, well, that too, right? I didn't even look at the instructions on the thing. I was like, instructions.
Yeah.
I chucked that box and I started building just from scratch, and I was like, oh, sweet baby Jesus. So I was like, mistakes were made. It was brutal. Although I learned a lot from building that army. I'm proud to say that my bolt action army has 0 pewter. Mm-hmm. 0. And how can this be, you ask? Well, I am resourceful with plastic because I am a 90s GW kid, and I've played the pewter game, and I was like, no more. I'm not going back. So I converted basically everything in my army from those infantry kits. And luckily, from some of the Tamiya tanks that I was able to buy, they came with some spare machine gun bits for the vehicles and stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what I was able to actually make my machine gun teams out of. And I'll have to, if you check out the Instagram and stuff, you'll see pictures. Like, I kind of went a little hardcore. I like scratch built, my observer. He's got little binoculars with little brass wire kind of around his neck. And he's got a guy calling in, like, his pretty much the radio man. And I ended up taking the grease gun bits and chopping just the little bulbs off the front of the grease gun to make the phone, like he's yelling into the radio.
Yeah.
Right. And I know a lot of guys kind of enjoyed looking at that stuff when I was posting it on some of the pages. But that was my thing. Like, even my flamer scratch built, mind you, it's not just a pipe with a flame coming out the end, although that's kind of what they had. I really wanted to have that muzzle.
Like that. The Germans are like that.
Yeah, I really wanted to have a muzzle, so I used a little 40K bit and whittled it down, and it's a little futuristic, but it's good enough for me. Like, I like the look of it, so it is cool having an army that's all converted, all plastic, and just running around. I currently only have my 2 Tamiya tanks, but I am getting that Warlord half track, so I think that'll be a cool addition as well. But yeah, no, I've enjoyed the process so far. I just don't want to go back to that old kit because that gave me nightmares.
And like the game itself, like getting an army itself is relatively inexpensive, right? So
it is actually, surprisingly enough, like, in terms of buying in for like a tabletop war game, and I'm comparing it to GW stuff because that's what I know. I would say it's probably a third of the price.
Yeah.
To get in. Like realistically, you drop $250 and you're in. You're playing.
Oh, for
and
sure.
like the box sets that they offer online are really good. I know I was pretty tempted by some of them. I was like, oh man, like, but I just starting in, obviously, you know, I wanted to dip the toe in. I didn't want to go too crazy and be like, wow, I've got, you know, like 5,000 points of Americans and I don't even know if I like this game. I really wanted to start slow, and I'm glad I did, because, you know, I didn't spend a lot, but at the same time, now that I've played, I actually do enjoy it. So I can definitely say, yeah, if you're liking the game and you're wanting to expand, I would definitely look at those box set armies, because they are pretty sweet.
Yeah, they're a good start, and I always pitch that to the new guys who come in, and you know, I tell them straight up, like, you get enough in that box set to start your army off, and it gives you a good variety of units to play around with, and then from this infantry box set that you get, you can build these additional units, your commander,
Absolutely.
your sniper, your bazooka team, you know, stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So ultimately, yeah, they've done pretty good with it, and then they've actually combined the command sections. So, you know, your commander, your medic, maybe a machine gun team, a mortar team, and then like observer maybe is in there. They used to sell those separately, but now they've combined it, and there's a bit of a savings on it. So it's always a good way to look at stuff, to resource stuff out too. So, but overall, yeah, like, I don't know. To me, it's been just amazing the last few years. I'm pretty happy I got into it. So I'm just happy and excited to see a whole bunch of buddies getting into it and getting back to gaming, and can't wait to see the results of future games that Mr. Bill will have.
Oh, yes.
But yeah, I guess going forward, I guess with us playing, and we'll have more games to come, and hopefully we'll get some good, decent pictures of them. And I guess pretty much your next plans for your army would be, I guess, just painting them up, and your tanks and stuff, right? So
that's kind of the main goal for me. September is going to be that sweet bolt action month.
Nice.
I'll be on days and then transitioning over to my afternoon shift, where I get most of my hobby time done. And yeah, my goal is to get as much of my bolt action fully painted as possible.
Nice.
So the next time I come back to the you know, the front, I've got a force that's like, oh shit, look at this, it's all painted up and ready to go, and it's like, oh yeah.
Well, I'm sure you'll get some attention with the way you've painted up your Sherman and some of your infantry already. So it's good. That's good. That's awesome to hear. And yeah, with that, well, thanks everybody for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'm sure you'll be having Bill on here a lot more as well now, because he's playing. So it'll be fun times, good laughs, and just stuff that we come across and learn and whatnot.
Definitely.
In the action world.
Definitely.
So don't forget to check out our Facebook, our Instagram. If you're on, you know, Podbean, you're obviously listening to us and stuff too, and a couple of the other platforms that we're on. But yeah, we'll continuously have, you know, episodes and lots of pictures on Instagram all the time on what we're working on. And then I think we've pretty much got a little bit of a painting challenge coming up soon enough for September, I believe. Still ironing out some of the details of what I'm going to paint. I know Bill's already mentioned pretty much what he's going to paint. So yeah, thanks for tuning in and joining us, and we will catch you next time. Trident Wargaming. Build it, paint it, play it.